He says it with more intensity and repeats it. I believe he's looking for affirmation from God, as well as a statement unto the people, the governor and the 50 men, to let them know. It's a statement and a question at the same time. Let God decide if that's true. In other words, he's learned. He's not saying, I am. He's saying, you know what you just said? Let God decide if that's true. If it's true, you'll be consumed with fire. It's funny, they had no idea the lessons he was learning from God. They used that phrase, oh man of God. But it hit him differently. And he's like, you know what? I can't receive that statement. Let God know if that's true. If that's true, if I truly am a man of God, if I am, then God, you let them know if that's true. You answer by fire. And he does. And he consumes all the 50 people. In verse 11, he says, again, sent him another captain of 50 and his 50. And he said unto him, O man of God, has the king said, come down quickly. And Elijah answered and said to him, if a man of God I be, in other words, if I be a man of God. Again, same thing. Intensifies, repeats it. I think Elijah's like this Peter example. Do you love me? Do you love me? He's like, God, now you're orchestrating this. It's not funny. Oh, and by the way, 50. Oh, that's right. To a Jewish person, 50 represents the year of Jubilee. Oh, that's right. That's when all debts are set free. Do you think God's telling Elijah, you've paid your dues, son? We're good now. Yes, you have learned. He gave him 2 chances, 2 occasions of 50 men to show division and witness that he paid the double release of his debt of the double portion he was falling short of his 60 fruit. You've paid the debt. You're in the right state finally. I'm still going to cut you short, but now you finally have the disposition inside of you that you need to get to that application of that silver talent I gave you for 60 fruit. Now you're able to turn into gold talents for the application. You're finally ready. Yes, son, you finally learned. The 2 groups of 50 were 2 groups of being forgiven the debt of the double fruit yield that he was not producing in 30 to 60. His debt was set free. Elijah was not presuming anymore. He wasn't stubborn anymore. He wasn't arrogant anymore. He just said, if it's true, let God answer. I don't know. I don't know anymore. Good God. Thank God Elijah learned. And then he says, if I be a man of God, let him consume the 50. And the fire of God, verse 12, came down from the heavens, plural, and consumed him in his 50. And he returned and sent again a governor of the 50, his 50, and the 3rd captain of the 50 went up. And he came and fell on his knees before Elijah. This is where I think God's given us a snippet of what happened behind the scenes that's not written. I believe this very reaction is what Elijah had to God that's not recorded. God did not show us this. I think just like it was when Jesus was on the cross and they pulled the curtain back, there was that private moment between God the Father and God the Son. None of our business. I think this right here is none of our business because he's not done with Elijah yet, and that's why God veils it. He doesn't want us to prejudge him. He wants us to assume the best of him because God was working on him, and God proves to us by bringing him back. He's not done with him, so don't you sell him short. But just know, just like with Esau, something happened. God's not to record it for you to know something happened, given the past and given the future. That means something must have happened somewhere in between. It's up to us to give God more credit for he making the change, not us making a change. Yes?
Todd said, is the captain of 50 just a title, an actual group of 50 plus the 50 men?
Yeah.
Would equal 100. I found the answer in verse 13.
Yep, you're correct. That's correct. Yep, the captain of the 3rd 50 with his 50. Yep. Yep, you got it. So the captain was the leader of this army, and then he says he fell on his knees before Elijah, or he bowed in front of him. He besought him, and O man of God, I beseech thee. Now this word beseech thee means that he was, again, in the Peel language, he was intensifying and repeating himself, begging for clemency. Just begging and pleading. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. Please, 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 please don't kill me. Please don't kill my man. Please, 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 please. I think that Elijah had done this very thing. And God was showing him, this is what you did to me, son. How you feel now. And how I've broken you. How I've used these men to say, man of God. How you then relied on me to affirm it, not yourself. I've showed you the 3rd time to let you know this is what you finally have arrived at. You get it now. Your foundational disposition's been changed. And he said, let my life and my soul of these servants be precious in your eyes. And that is why, and that's the verse used out of context. Precious is in the eyes of the Lord is the death of his saints. He means those who are faithful unto him. So he was telling Elijah, your life is precious to me, and that's why your death has to be later on. You're prepared now in your inner disposition, but I gotta stay. I got another future point for you to make. Later on is when you'll die, and you're still precious to me now and then. So he tells him, I think he's telling him this, and the picture of this man saying this to Elijah. And he says, behold, there came fire down from heaven and burnt up the 2 captains of their former 50 and their 50. Therefore, let my soul now be precious in your eyes. He's asking him. He said, hey, I know what happened. Just don't do it to me. And so watch this now. To show you Elijah, people say, you're reading into this. Elijah's still the same pompous. He's still braggadocious. He's still Mr. like Matt Dillon of Gunsmoke. No, he's not. Watch this. In verse 15, the angel of the Lord said unto Elijah, go down with him and be not afraid. Hello? Why would he say that if he's the same presumptive, stubborn, arrogant jerk that he was before? He's saying that because Elijah was finally humbled. He was so humbled, so changed by the events that took place over the last 3.5 years, that this event, he totally understood what God was saying. He was in tears. I believe he was in tears. I believe it's not saying that to you, but this man was in tears. And he's hearing God's voice of this servant speaking to him and realizing that's how God heard him talking to him. When he was broken, when he beseeched for clemency, he didn't deserve it. And I believe he was afraid of not knowing what to do at this point. Now what do? I don't want to act any more presumptuous, any more of a stubborn servant, of a child who is arrogant. Please, God, Father, help me to know what to do. So the Christophany comes back for the 3rd time in his life. Chapter 19, the 1st time. Chapter 22, verse 3, the 2nd time. And now for the 3rd time, he tells him, go. And don't be afraid. It's the same thing he told Joshua. Don't be of courage and don't be afraid. For as I was with Moses, I'll be with you. That's what he told Joshua. Here he tells Elijah that, go down with him, be not afraid. And he arose and went down with him unto the king. And he said unto him, thus saith the Lord, for as much as been sent the messengers to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, it is not because there is no God in Israel to inquire his word. In other words, again, he repeats what we already know. Why didn't you inquire of God of Israel? You know there's one true God. Therefore, because of you going to false gods, you will not come down off your bed. I will not going to heal you, basically, but you're going to die. Verse 17, so he died according to the word of the Lord, which Elijah had spoken. And Jehoram reigned in his stead, in the 2nd year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, because he had no son. Now the rest of the acts of Ahaziah, which he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. So again, I want to end here because we're at close of a time, and I want to, as a prelude to chapter 2, you're going to see Elijah no longer being presumptuous and stubborn and arrogant, not only because of this interaction we see in chapter 1, but in chapter 2, he approves it again, God does, because Elijah continues to not think he's the center of attention. He tells Elisha continuously, stay in Gilgal. Stay in Gilgal. He says, stay in Gilgal. Stay in Bethel. Stay in Jericho. He tells them 3 times, don't come with me. Stay here. And Elisha all 3 times says, I'm going with you. Okay. But each time Elijah wants him to know, I'm not stuck on myself anymore. I'm not lost in myself anymore. I get it now. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's not about my ministry and my things and my this and my that. Oh, Elisha, do it, boy, have I learned. And that's why Elisha says to them at the end, I see what God has done in your life, and I see you're at the precipice of doing more, but God's cutting it short. I want to have what God has done and is still doing in your life. He's not finished yet. I want the second half of that. I want double portion. He saw what he was prepared to be doing, but God just took him out. And that's what's going to come up in chapter 2. Elisha saw a changed man. Elijah was used to help Elisha to know which way not to go. I could therefore say to you, people say, why would God ordain foolish virgins to exist and people who are dying in understanding to be arrogant and presumptuous? Because I can tell you this, it's helped me to not go that way. It's helped me to see what the error of those ways are. But it's even better when you see those people get turned. When you see them get turned and you see them get humbled by God and then change their life for the better, boy, that's wonderful. Boy, is that encouraging to you? Is that so motivating, so encouraging? Yes?
Pam said, what does the bed refer to, his residence?
Oh, yeah, he's in Samaria. It refers to the king's throne room, his king's house. He's in his kingdom. He's in Samaria.
Explain that 2 sets of 50 that got consumed, could it like have a reference to 100 fruit, and then the 50 that didn't get consumed, like the millennial extra that you...
Yeah, I think, because I think, for example, I think Elijah, it's twofold, threefold. So the first 50, I think, is the debt he owed for the 30 fruit yield that he didn't provide in the right way with those presumptive, stubborn, arrogant traits. The second 50 is the other fruit of 60 he didn't get a chance to apply, which then total 100, which means that's why he was cut short of the 100, which I believe he will then exhibit in tribulation period. I believe he and Moses both get brought to 100 fruit yield myself during tribulation. And that's what the 100 speaks to ultimately. But at this particular time and juncture, it spoke to just the 30-60. But with a reference to the future, he'll be 100 fruit. Oh, absolutely. I think Elijah, by far, he and Moses, who are cut short of that, will not be cut short of that in the future. And they will join the bride all day long. Those guys will be there. But right now, if it were to be, they're not with them right now, which is kind of ironic. So they're in the heavens knowing they're not part of the betrothed bride. But when they go back and then come back raised up, they're going to be, imagine the joy of all the other apostles and Old Testament saints going, hey, you're with us now, those who were in that group. And they know that time is waiting for them. And that's just a great restorative story for them to know this and yet have to wait to experience it. It's really awesome for them. It's just how good God is. He's loving. Yes?
Pam said that phrase is repeated all throughout this, and
Yeah.
I was confused.
Yeah, it just speaks to him being in his bed, and he's in in his bed, in his home, in his throne room, in his kingdom, in his home, his house, outside of in Samaria. That's all it's speaking to, his bed, meaning he's in his deathbed. He's in his bed. He's in a deathbed, basically. He's like in a hospital bed, in essence, because he can't move. He's so weakened and sickly, and he's hoping to get healed, obviously. So that's what it's speaking to. The bed that would be the bed of restoration or the bed of death. And in this case, he died because he sought the wrong God. What an idiot. Like he didn't know any better. Like he didn't see his father and mother do the wrong thing and not learn from that. What a dichotomy. Ahaziah saw evil and didn't learn from it. Elijah, he saw what others didn't learn from it. Elijah saw his own sin in himself and in others and learned from it. It's interesting. Ahaziah wasn't humbled. Elijah was humbled. Ahaziah wasn't changed. Elijah was changed. It's a big dichotomy. Ahaziah died. Elijah was brought to a place of death, but not to a normal process. But he's going to come back to experience the regular death that we experience. And it's just a fulfillment of God's promise to him of restoration, which I think is just awesome. So his life and his triptych at this point is not what people think it is. There's more depth of character building, more depth of maturing in the faith that was being done by God and being said by God behind the scenes. And again, within the white spaces, I would say, within what people don't understand what's going on in all those chapters 20, 21, and 22, he's mentioned in one blurt, but people don't see the real lessons God was teaching him to understand what it took, what it means to grow in your faith and be matured in your faith. And don't be so focused on how God's working in and through you, but be more concerned with not just how he's working in and through you or around you, but be concerned with your personal relationship with him, the content of that relationship, the value of, do you really want to trust in his sovereign hand? And it's not about you. It's about him loving on you and about him wanting to just be close to you, and he wants your soul. He wants you. Not what you can do, what he can do in and through you. He wants you. So that just takes a whole different mentality. I think that's the biggest lesson for him. If he could say it in his own words, it's going to transcend whatever I can put into words, because he lived it. Elijah he's one of the guys that, of the prophets, he and Moses are so suited for this tribulation task, because boy, they have a rooted depth of firm foundation on God that cannot be shaken, that cannot be wavered. And they're going to need that during that time. And they are the most suited for that, because there's nobody more stable and more founded, given what they've been through from that particular situation, They both having Christophanies given to them and so forth. It's a whole different similitude of what they have in common. So anyway, with that being said, we'll stop and pray. We'll continue on 2 Kings chapter 2 when Elijah is taken up and taken away in a tempest and a whirlwind, and then with the fiery chariot. And Elijah again is telling Elisha each time, don't go with me. You settle. You stay here. You stay here. You settle. And by the way, a little hint for next time, think about this. They were in Gilgal. They go to Bethel, back to Jericho to cross over. So why the back and forth? What's that about? Why go? They went from Gilgal to Bethel to Jericho. Why the back and forth? Kind of odd, right? And by the way, another question to ask yourself. The sons of the prophets already knew that it was that day that Elijah was going up into heaven. He's being taken by God. They all knew. How'd they know? We'll talk about that next week. How'd they know? What's with the back and forth deal? There's reasons God did that. And it kind of shows you the growth of Elijah and his last message of growth for Elisha to take with him, lessons learned from a life that he's like a Solomon. He's gleaning back on his takeaways. Yes?
And he said good study. Vicky said these two groups of 50, do they represent groups of a third killed in Revelation 9?
I don't know. I mean, as far as that, it's a good point. I don't, about the Revelation 9 third group killed, don't know. Good point. I'll look into that. I don't know how to answer that. Don't know. Could be, because I know there's a lot of tribulation parallels here, so that could very well be the case. I have not looked into that specifically. So I'll look into that though first. Okay, Revelation 9. So let's close and pray, and we'll finish up, and then we'll get going for our rest of our day. So Father, thank you again for the opportunity we have with you to learn, to grow, to hear, to understand, just be changed by you. Thank you for giving opportunities to take away our presumption, our stubbornness, our arrogance. Father, please take these away. Please let them be far from mind, heart, spirit. Help us to be humbled, fashionable, in a spirit of servanthood to you. Just in trusting in your will in our lives, not trying to do anything, just to accept and embrace your will. Thank you for who you are, what you've done, continue to do in our lives. Thank you for just being our God who will use any and all things to bring about changes and lessons to be learned. Thank you for showing us you can use anything, anyone, any circumstance. You don't need us. You just choose to use us. And help us not to focus on what you do in and through and around us, but just our relationship with you. To help us just recollect the person of who you are, the love that you have given to us, and the insight and just the closeness to which you draw us closer to you, to walk with you, to have our mind, spirit, and soul and body changed by understanding more of you and your word. Just that whole closer walk with you as you take our hand and you embrace us. Father, we thank you for all you have done and continue to do in our lives. Bring us back together safely, and we have us have a good week, Father. And thank you so much again for being just our lover of our soul, the guide, the counselor, our pastor, our shepherd, our teacher. In Jesus, Yeshua's name, amen. So anyway.